I'm Yoshiller. I've been playing Pokemon games for as long as I can remember. Seriously, I even used Pokemon games to learn how to read. It would not be a stretch to say that Pokemon games have changed my life, and I've been fortunate enough to be involved in many different events throughout my life, Pokemon related or otherwise. I've collaborated with many amazing and talented creators, and I've helped many pursue and even accomplish their desires and dreams. As for me, I've participated in numerous Pokemon projects and have created many of my own over the years. You may have even seen my face in many large-scale sites. Or perhaps you were unaware that I've contributed so much to this series. I adore Pokemon, and I've traveled the world because of it. And as early as the Pokemon X and Y days in 2013, I attempted to become known as a tactical trainer that utilized Bayleaf, my favorite Pokemon. This is my Pokemon BATAW series. BATAW being an acronym that stands for Battles Anytime, Anywhere. It's a long-running series that I started back during Pokemon X and Y that has allowed me to demonstrate my knowledge and wit within Pokemon in an effort to battle various other players within the community. Because of this series, I've battled against many of the best players in the world and have overcome numerous endeavors and challenges. Yet, it still feels as though I haven't truly made my mark on the Pokemon community. See, I dream of one day becoming one of the all-time Pokemon greats, being a popular name associated with the franchise that's inspired and motivated me for decades. And with the recent release of Pokemon Champions, I hope that I can make this dream into a reality. Now, I don't have to become rank number 1 or defeat every player I face. My goal is purely to become a known face within the community. With that said, if this goal entails rising the ranks and becoming a champion of my own, then so be it. I'll do whatever it takes, with one exception. I can only use a limited selection of Pokemon. That is to say, I've got a team of Pokemon that I refer to as my Yoshiller Pokemon Bubble. I've got a roster of 60 Pokemon that I use in any and all of my Pokemon projects. If you've ever seen my involvement in other works, then you've probably seen the Pokemon from this roster appear in some form or another. These are the Pokemon that I've collected throughout the course of my former Pokemon video series over the years, and they are the ones that I shall exclusively use throughout my Pokemon BATAW matches. One of the main things that inspired me to compete at all and create the Pokemon BATAW series was the Sinnoh League arc of the Pokemon anime. During a time when I was actually somewhat phasing out of watching and playing Pokemon, the 5th generation of Pokemon games managed to hook me back in, and just before the glorious Pokemon Black and White titles released on the Nintendo DS, the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl anime had concluded with an amazing arc that consisted of the protagonist, Ash Ketchum, constructing teams based on all the Pokemon that he had caught over the course of his adventure. I thought that this was such a fun and cool idea, so ever since then, I've attempted to do the same thing. Regardless of what hurdles I must overcome and what styles of matches I must play, I will always try to make the Pokemon within my bubble rise to the challenge. Plus, another one of my inspirations to compete at all was the famous Pokemon Championship match in which Seijun Park won the 2014 World Championships using Pachirisu. I had the pleasure of being in the audience for that set, and I even managed to snag a picture with the champion just after he won the match. Since that day, I've dreamt that I could one day produce a similar result. The idea of people cheering me on, excited to see me play on a stage in front of hundreds or thousands of viewers, while I use an unconventional Pokemon that has become associated with me to be the next Seijun Park, to be a name within the Pokemon community. Oh, it just makes me starry-eyed! Which is why I aim to play my Pokemon matches in a specific way. While I certainly could just pivot to metagame statistics and use the same common threats that most other players will utilize, I find that I enjoy using my own roster of Pokemon more. It's just what I've come to know, and I believe that working within this more limited selection will cause me to become more creative with my strategies and, ideally, allow me to stand out among my opponents. And remember, at the end of the day, my primary goal is to stand out. So, as I stated earlier, I've been making competitive Pokemon videos since Pokemon X and Y on the Nintendo 3DS. That continued into Pokemon Sun and Moon, and then Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and then Pokemon Sword and Shield, where I reached Master Ball rank. I missed the boat when it came to ranked matches in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So now I intend to remedy this here in this new era of competitive Pokemon battling with Pokemon Champions. I should be playing for fame, glory, and most of all, love. Love of the game, that is. So, what are the 60 Pokemon that I have been using and shall continue to use over the course of my competitive journey? Well, at the moment, not every single one of these Pokemon is available in Pokemon Champions. In the event that all of these Pokemon do become compatible one day, and that's the hope, then I'd like for this video to serve as a reference and introduction to each of them. They're all important to me in some form or another anyway, and I wouldn't be where I am without them, right? So, I best be thorough. Let's go ahead and meet the team that is the Yoshiller Pokemon Bubble. Kicking things off is my grass-type Regal Pokemon, Serperior. This serpentine menace is named after my high school friend Anthony, whom some of you may better know online as Shrooby, if you've seen some of my more multiplayer-focused content outside of Pokemon. Honestly, Serperior's strategy is pretty straightforward, and that's not necessarily such a bad thing. Serperior has access to the Contrary ability, which reverses all stat buffs and drops. If I stack this with Leaf Storm, Serperior's special attack will raise twice each time I use it, allowing this move to become more and more powerful as the battle continues. And in a double battle, I can potentially buff Serperior's other stats with moves that would otherwise negatively impact my opponents, especially if I use something like Bulldoze to attack all my enemies on the field at once. And since Serperior already has a competent speed stat, Anthony here will demonstrate why he's the king of snakes. Logan, nicknamed after a high school friend that has appeared in several of my videos over the years, is my water-type monkey Pokemon, Simipour. The elemental monkeys in Pokemon games often get a bad rep, and yeah, they can often be outclassed. Still, I'm excited to use Simipour in my future battles. He'll allow me to pull off some unorthodox strategies. If the Pledge moves are ever added to Pokemon Champions, then Simipour will regain access to the move Water Pledge, and that'll make him the only Pokemon within my bubble that can learn the move. I'd gladly be willing to create some shenanigans with this move if I pair him alongside some of my other Grass Pledge and Fire Pledge users. Oh, I've got plenty of tricks at my disposal. And even without the Pledge moves, he's still a Water-type Pokemon. That's already useful. Come aboard, Simipour! Andrew was a good friend of mine that previously appeared as a second player in a variety of my videos in the past. His intelligence and kind nature led me to think that I should name a Psychic-type Pokemon after him, even though Andrew is male and my Musharna here is a girl. And Andrew primarily likes Water-type Pokemon, so I probably should have named my Simipour after him, but my Water-type Pokemon was already nicknamed Logan. Anyway, Andrew here, my female Musharna, is no slouch. What she may lack in speed and general offense, she makes up for in strategy and utility. I've used her moveset in my former battles to make her bulky and strike my opponents with the fiercest of blows. Once I get the ball rolling, she's quite unstoppable. I imagine her access to additional stat boosting moves will continue to be useful in my upcoming matches. Throw may be a bit of an unconventional Pokemon, in a generation otherwise full of powerful, competent fighting-type Pokemon. He's an unconventional Pokemon, and I'm an unconventional guy. I've always kinda liked Throw, and my friend Ian, who has appeared in several of my earlier videos, also prefers fighting types, so Throw here is nicknamed after him. Slow and bulky characteristics aren't particularly common among fighting types, and Throw often plays second fiddle to other Pokemon with these adjectives, namely Conkeldurr, but his more unique move pool, with access to moves like Storm Throw and Circle Throw, may just catch opponents off guard. And I've even used some of these moves in the past to some success. So I imagine that Throw will continue to be a useful fighting type for me as I attempt to throw off my opponents. Michael, who online is better known as Mega Man Sonic X, which I then shortened to Messi, and then had to intentionally misspell the name as Michael, M-I-K-E-L, in the Japanese version of Pokemon White, is named after a friend who has appeared in dozens of my videos over the years. The Darmanitan that bears his name is a speedy powerhouse. Darmanitan hits like a truck thanks to his sheer force ability and access to Flare Blitz, and thankfully, his moveset provides nice coverage across the board. You can definitely expect me to use this fiery ape in many of my upcoming endeavors. My Haxorus is nicknamed Pelt, which is also the nickname of the infamous Yellow Toad player from my new Super Mario Bros. Wii videos from 2010. I originally obtained this Haxorus as an egg during a Japan-exclusive mystery gift event, which had been used to promote the anime at the time. Players were able to access eggs to Pidove, Pansage, or Axew, and fortunately, I got the ferocious dragon-type Axew. As my journey continued, Axew eventually became a Haxorus and was a worthy addition to the team. Haxorus's plan is simple. Hit him fast and hit him hard. And if you can go for a sweep by pulling off a dragon dance or two, then I say go for it. This dragon is sure to pack a punch. Slash, I guess? Well, it may not sound nearly as impactful, but I assure you that Haxorus can leave quite an impact. So, those 6 Pokemon were my main team over the course of my Pokemon Wide adventure in the Unova region. However, since the 5th generation of Pokemon games introduced over 150 brand new Pokemon, and since the anime at the time even had the main character rotating out his team by having more than the usual group of 6, I opted to do the same thing. So while my 6 main Pokemon were named after my real-life high school friends, the rotational team were nicknamed after online friends that I had at the time. Well, sorta. Let's get into it. This Excadrill was formerly nicknamed Moger, as the nickname of its pre-evolution in Japanese is Mogeru. The Excadrill that I use to this day wasn't initially obtained by me, but rather it was obtained by a friend who goes by the online alias of Mr. Bean and is a Mario Kart Wii World Record holder. He and I had played the Japanese releases of Pokemon Black and White together, and we even once did an all-Clefairy Metronome battle. In any case, when he traded this Excadrill to me as a Drillbur, it was just a Drillbur that essentially maintained its original Japanese name. I'm now opting to retcon this nickname and name him after his original owner, Bean. With that out of the way, Bean here is already quite a terror of his own, and he recently gained access to a new Mega Evolution in Pokemon Legends EA. Without his Mega Evolution, Excadrill already had access to abilities in Sand Rush and Mold Breaker, both of which are extremely useful. With a Mega, well, now he just gets a power boost and he can hit through opponents that use Protect. Regardless of whether or not I use this new Mega Evolution, I trust that Bean here will do me justice just as he will to his original owner, Mr. Bean. Vanillux here was also nicknamed after a Mario Kart Wii time trialer at the time, who went by the name of Twee. Since the Mario Kart player was female and my Vanillux is female, I nicknamed this Ice-type Pokemon after her. Vanillux certainly looks silly and is a Pokemon based on ice cream, and I assure you that her looks are deceiving. She has a competent special attack stat and can be a great ally in double battles thanks to her access to summoning snowstorms and having access to moves like Aurora Veil, Haunt, Icy Wind, and Ally Switch. Who knows? She may surprise you just as she'll eventually surprise my foes. My Electros was a Pokemon that was rotated onto my team occasionally, and at the time, since I was opting to abide by my nicknaming scheme, I figured that Electros should also take the online username of a friend. He was initially nicknamed after my high school friend Rossick, but he took the online username of Rossick, being Foodman28. I'm now retconning this decision and shall now just go by Rossick instead. For those that don't know, Rossick was the platform creator in my New Super Mario Bros. U videos, and he also appeared in a couple of my Nintendo Land and other multiplayer videos. Electros is already unique as an electric-type Pokemon with the ability Levitate. This means that, outside of opponents having abilities like Mold Breaker, he effectively has no weakness. This already allows me to operate the classic Earthquake Discharge strategy if I pair him with someone like my Excadrill. And much like my Excadrill, he received a new Mega Evolution in Pokemon Legends ZA. If nothing else, it helps to have a potentially beefed-up electric type on my team. Beyond that, Electros is a serviceable mixed attacker, being able to run a diverse set of special attacks or physical attacks depending on what's necessary for the team. Rossick has a lot of options. Now we get into the Pokemon that I obtained during the postgame, and at the time, I wanted to ensure that all of my postgame catches were Pokemon that were not newly introduced in Generation 5. So, to kick things off, we have one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, Lapras. She's nicknamed after an online friend, Naruzin, who is a boy, but the Lapras is female. Yeah, I guess I made a habit of that during my Pokemon Black and White adventure. While Lapras' typing may not be great, she wound up being my most useful Pokemon back when I competed in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Her Gigantamax form allowed her to strike damage and set up an Aurora Veil on the same turn, and she would capitalize on her decent bulk by holding a weakness policy so that she could take advantage of her bad typing. That way, when she reverted back to her original form, she was powered up and ready to go. Whenever Dynamax and Gigantamax forms return to Pokemon Champions, I trust that she'll be able to pull off similar tactics. Until then, she'll be a bulky water-ice type Pokemon that is sure to aid me in my battles. Noctowl is the only Pokemon of which I have multiple, the other being on my Heart Gold team, which I'll discuss later. This Noctowl, X0, was quite useful during the post-game portion of my Pokemon White adventure. I figure every player likes one of the early game bird Pokemon, and for me, it's Noctowl. Noctowl is an interesting Pokemon with lots of potential, as it's a flying type Pokemon that specializes in special attack and special defense. It also learns a fair share of stat boosting and utility moves, and she also has access to the Tinted Lens ability, meaning that all of her moves will always hit for at least neutral damage. If potential is the aim of the game, then I'll try to demonstrate what Noctowl's potential can really do. Dragonite, another one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, is almost as if Noctowl had realized its full potential. Dragonite really can do it all. He can be run bulky and set up with Dragon Dance, or he can even hold a weakness policy and go straight for glory with a wide move pool and plenty of offensive capabilities. And with his multi-scale ability, it'll probably take a few hits to take him down too. He's truly only limited by the fact that he can only learn up to 4 moves at a time. Additionally, Dragonite also received a new Mega Evolution in Pokemon Legends ZA, so if he was already a threat previously, then I can only imagine how much of a threat he'll be in Pokemon Champions. Blaziken, my firefighter, is quite a competent mixed attacker with access to Speed Boost. Though he has access to a Mega Evolution as well, he'll debatably be more useful without it. He can already set up with moves such as Swords Dance, if he so desires, and he learns a fair spread of moves across Fire, Rock, Ground, Fighting, and Flying type moves. As such, it's probably better just to run this Flaming Karate Bird with a Life Orb and to just passively build up his speed thanks to a Speed Boost ability as the battle continues. Once the ball starts rolling, Blaziken can truly become unstoppable. Breloom can very easily become an obnoxious Pokemon for my opponents. As one of the few Pokemon with access to the move Spore, she alone can now allow any of my Pokemon to begin setting up once she inflicts it. Additionally, she can stall out opponents with access to Substitute and her ability Poison Heal. Just as well, if she wanted to go on the offensive, I could run her with the ability Technician instead and power up weaker moves such as Bullet Seed and Mach Punch. The point is, if my opponents see her, they'll need to take her down immediately. Otherwise, she can truly become a nightmare for my foes as she sets me up for many different win conditions. Speaking Speaking of win conditions, that's exactly what Shedinja is. When I used Shedinja back in Pokemon Sword and Shield, this bug made it so that all I had to do was defeat any opposing Pokemon that could potentially inflict damage onto Shedinja, which they could only do with a super effective hit since I usually ran Shedinja with heavy-duty boots, granting it immunity to weather conditions and hazards. This made Shedinja into a perfect counter to common powerful threats like Kyogre, Tapu Lele, and most of all, Zacian. It's not foolproof, and it's not practical in every battle, but even just having Shedinja on my team will force my opponents to play cautiously. It makes the battle truly begin in the team selection process. Altaria is nicknamed after my favorite city in a Pokemon game, the Unova region's Nimbasa city, and she is a deceptively bulky dragon-type bird. Her bulk allows her to have a utility role, and just as well, her Mega Evolution allows her to become the even more bulky Dragon Fairy type, which is a unique type that is boosted with access to its Pixelate ability. Still, her best role is perhaps as a way to shut down other teams rather than to attempt to be a powerhouse on her own, and she can ideally stop any opponents from setting up on me so that I can then attempt to set up on them instead. Talk about a power boost. Absol has had a rough road to success over the years, and through it all, I remained determined to use Reaper here. He already had some use thanks to his abilities in Justified and Super Luck, yet his Mega Form, sure, it gave him a power boost, which is useful, and Magic Bounce isn't a terrible ability, it just left something to be desired. Now, Mega Absol Z is here, and Reaper will truly be ready to slay. With added Ghost typing, my Absol will hit harder than ever before, and he'll truly be able to reap the rewards. My Locaras has been here with me since my Pokemon Emerald days, where I used my fishing rod in each of the square tiles in Route 119 in hopes of finally encountering a Feebas. Then, I realized I did all that and I was using the wrong fishing rod. So, I went about fishing through all of the tiles again, and sure enough, Feebas bit onto the hook. I then spent some time evolving this rare fish into a beautiful Milotic, and the effort was worth it, as Milotic has become one of my most useful and versatile Pokemon over the years. And, in subsequent years, I hoped fellow players gain Feebas of their own so they wouldn't have to go through the same trials that I endured. Milotic's access to the ability Competitive allows her to serve as an immediate counter to common threats such as Landorus and Incineroar, as anytime those Pokemon activate their Intimidate abilities, her special attack stat will raise by 2 stages. Not to mention, Milotic is also physically bulky as well, so she can maintain her presence on the battlefield fine as is anyway. She's a great supportive role, and can truly change the tides of battles. When Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 released, they allowed older Pokemon to become just as common as newer Pokemon. So I constructed a team that combined both old and new Pokemon. Starting things off, we've got good ol' Arcanine. Arcanine's attack stat is high enough to where it can reliably take out most opposing threats, and just as well, he can serve as a somewhat bulky utility Pokemon too. If need be, he can always use his Intimidate ability to lower my opponent's attack stats, and then he can use Snarl to lower their special attack stats too. He's also a competent mixed attacker, so if I wanted to run him with special attacks, I definitely could. For these reasons, he served as the leading star player in my Pokemon White 2 team. Well, him and Lucario. Speaking of, Cairo! Lucario can also be run as a mixed attacker, and his Mega Form makes him even more of a powerhouse than he already was. And he has access to a new Mega Form that may just be even more powerful. Even without his Mega Forms, Lucario has gained access to a wide variety of moves and ways to power them up. He has many different options that can be run to deal with countering teams that come across his path. I trust that Cairo here will have a fun time within Pokemon Champions, especially with his new Mega Form as an option. It's not just Jolt, it's Jolt! Jolteon is able to make use of his remarkably high speed stat to gain the upper hand on setting up on my opponents. I've even taken that one step further in the past, where I previously had Jolteon with the Quick Feet ability. I even tried running him with the move Copycat, and the results were weird. Even so, Jolteon is fast, so he can swiftly set up a Thunder Wave or Toxic onto my opponents, and that alone can determine how the rest of the battle plays out. His special attack is also very high, so he can hit foes just as quickly as he can switch out of there with a Volt Switch or something. It'll certainly be nice to have a speedy Pokemon like Jolteon on my team from time to time. For a while, the only Rock-type Pokemon in my entire bubble was Rocker, my Gigalith. So, if I ever needed a Rock-type, then it had to be Rocker. Gigalith can immediately set up a Sandstorm upon being switched into battle. I could also run Gigalith with Sturdy, allowing him to take a hit without being one-hit KO'd, and from there, I could use Explosion or something to that effect. In a single battle, Gigalith is primarily useful in setting up hazards like Stealth Rock. If he's around for more than a turn or two, then yes, his massive attack stat is very useful. Otherwise, I intend to use this monolithic rock in a cautious, tactical manner. While Swanna may not shine in any one particular stat or field, she does learn a lot of moves that can be great in setting up her allies. She has access to Tailwind, Defog, and Chilling Water, and she can even run Knockoff or Flip Turn if she wants to be extra weird. Another interesting tactic could be to run her with Endeavor and use her fragile presence to my advantage, especially if I pair her with Aqua Jet, a priority move. I acknowledge that these strategies may be a bit unusual for a Pokemon with no base stat over 100, and that's just the type of player that I aim to be. unusual. If I pull off these things with a Swanna, then I hope that no one shall forget them. Plus, swans themselves are often a symbol of grace and good fortune. If I use my Swanna, then perhaps I'll receive some good grace and fortune of my own. This Zoroark is actually an evolved form of N Zoroa, the one that's gifted to the player in Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. As a result, it has N's trainer ID, and it already has perfect IVs. Not that that matters in Pokemon Champions. Though it does mean that Zoroark has been my first ever battle-ready Pokemon for tournaments. I even used him in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon competitions and had varying levels of success. Namely, it was his deceptive nature and surprising move pool that allowed me to score a win on an opponent, where I ran Zoroark with a Choice Scarf and Grass Knot to take out a Snorlax and a Mega Gyarados in a tournament match. These days, Zoroark is more about the mind games than actually taking down opponents himself, though he can definitely do that too. And since he's a dark type, he can deceive opponents as he's unaffected by Pokemon with the ability Prankster. It may even be possible for him to deceive an opponent into using the wrong move on the wrong Pokemon, and then Zoroark can merely shrug it off and show his true power. Ever since N Zoroa became a Zoroark for me, he's been very useful over the years, and I trust that he'll continue to be just as useful throughout Pokemon Champions. From one dark type into another, Fighter here is also one of only 2 poison type Pokemon that I ever use, allowing him to make use of the Black Sludge item alongside his high defense stat. In a single battle, he can set up toxic spikes or even get rid of them by simply appearing on the field. He can presumably take a hit as well, as dark poison typing is fantastic. And thanks to having access to battle armor, critical hits don't work on him. He can use Knockoff and even Whirlwind, and in a double battle, he can use Acupressure to boost the stats of an ally. Drapion won't be a pushover, that's for sure. Golurk has always been a bit of a niche Pokemon, even for me. Its main stat of interest is its attack stat. Ghost ground typing is pretty good, as it grants access to 3 type immunities, and it learns great moves and has access to No Guard as its ability, so it won't miss with moves such as Dynamic Punch or Stone Edge. The difficulty comes from getting Golurk an opportunity to strike. Now that Pokemon Legends ZA has granted Golurk a Mega Evolution, perhaps that opportunity has come. And its Mega Form can even hit through moves like Protect. Mega Form or not, we'll find some way to get Golurk to use its full potential. I'm sure of it. Bouffalant, or Wild Wings as I call him, is another Pokemon in a string of heavy-hitting normal-type Pokemon. By nature of having him on my Pokemon White 2 team, I had a Pokemon of each type on my team between Pokemon White 1 and Pokemon White 2, though there was no bug type by the end, as my bug type slot was Scorpy, who became a Drapion and lost its bug typing in favor of dark typing. Still, throughout these 2 Unova teams, Bouffalant was my normal type. He's got okay enough bulk, and he's surprisingly slow, yet he manages to still be useful in some areas. He can be run with his signature move Head Smash, which, stacked with his Reckless ability, allows him to hit really hard. This can even be further stacked with a Choice Band to effectively make his Head Smash one-hit KO most bulky Pokemon. Alternatively, Wild Wings here can even try to utilize its bulk with Sap Sipper for its ability, granting it a Grass type immunity. Hitting hard and taking hits too? Bouffalant's normal typing may make it anything but normal. My ace Pokemon, Spicial, spent her competitive years mainly as a Bayleaf. Her role as a Bayleaf, and now especially as a Meganium, is to serve as a tank, especially with moves like Leech Seed and Giga Drain to help reliably restore her health. And her access to Ancient Power, and now Earth Power, is especially useful in type coverage. Her new Mega Form, which grants her additional Fairy typing, will combine nicely with the new moves that she has at her disposal. Spicial's amazing bulk and utility as a Meganium will prove her prominence in my more slower-paced strategic playstyles. My second Noctowl, and the one that I primarily use. This special attacker had her chance to shine in my Pokemon Sword and Shield days, where I ran her with a Blunder policy in case she missed with Hypnosis. She learns a fair deal of great special attacks, and her move pool allows her to catch her opponents off guard and become quite the threat under the right circumstances. I said this for the other Noctowl, and I'll say it again. I believe every player should use at least one early game bird in a playthrough or in a competitive match, and for me, it's gonna be Noctowl. And I don't regret that decision. In fact, I don't regret it so much so that I have 2 Noctowl for that reason. Twice the fun, I say. Ah, Quagsire. I'm as happy to have this water ground type on my team as she is always happy to be included in a fight. Look at that smile. Both Water Absorb and Unaware are great abilities for her, even allowing her to counter the likes of Kyogre and Salamence, but she's easy to switch into, and for better or for worse, her strategy is pretty straightforward. Take hits, stall out opponents, and smile through it all. Oh, I love my Quagsire. Umbreon has amazing physical and special bulk, and he gains all the right moves to put those stats to use. The combination of Wish and Protect will allow Erebus here to stall out his opponents, if he desires, and his access to Foul Play means that he can invest all of his effort values into bulk while still dealing massive damage to his foes. He's a great wall in single battles and a great ally in double battles, and he'll be quite the nuisance when necessary. Initially traded to me as part of a 3-way trade deal involving a Slowpoke and a Seadra, Ryan here is my only Pokemon obtained in a Sport Ball, as he was caught as a Scyther in the Johto a bug-catching contest. His defensive utility works extremely well with his type combination, and he has access to plenty of useful moves that allow him to pivot into a sweeper. His Mega Form is quite useful too, just allowing him to become even more powerful and more bulky. Scissor's bread and butter is his combination of his ability Technician, and his Furious Bullet Punch attack to hit extra hard is a priority move. And his Bug Steel typing allows him to be plenty defensive. A worthy trade for the Scizor indeed. Deceptively fast and full of great utility moves, Holy Cow can pack a punch and take one too. She's a surprise powerhouse that can just as surprisingly fit well into a fair share of my team combinations. And if I did want to play around her bulk, then I can definitely work some moveset magic with Milk Shrink and Heal Bell. Plus, her ability options of Thick Fat and Sap Sipper ain't too shabby either. Here's hoping she can steer me in the right direction. Steer? Does that work? She's a cow. I guess that doesn't work because she's a cow and not a steer, and steers are only male and Miltank's only female. This is why I'm not a comedian, I'm just a Pokemon battler. For my Pokemon Y team, the nicknaming convention was that each Pokemon's name started with the letter Y. To kick things off, Delphox, my beloved. Delphox, as I called her, is fast, has great typing, and has a great special attack stat. She also has access to a variety of moves that may allow me to come up with some more devious battle strategies. Delphox gained a Mega Form in Pokemon Legends ZA that grants her access to the ability Levitate, so she'll hit even harder than she would normally, and she'll be a great ally in double battles. We'll just have to wait and see what I can cook up with this fiery fox fiend. The greatest stat of Yo-Goat, my Go-Goat, is his HP stat, and he could theoretically be used as an okay mixed attacker too. The most optimal way to use this old goat is to possibly run him with Bulk Up or Growth, and then Trailblaze and Hornleech are his other options to boost his stats and make use of his HP stat. You can also learn Milk Shrink if it wants to be really annoying, and trust me, I'm not opposed to that. The move pool on Go-Goat is a bit bizarre, and it's that bizarreness that allows Go-Goat to play differently than my other grass types in Superior, Breloom, or Meganium. I'll see which devious strategies I can surmise. My little Dragon Slayer. I ventured through Pokemon Y and kept Mawile in my rotation on my Kalos team, only to find that her Mega Stone was locked away in the postgame. But once I finally did get my hands on a Mawile Light, I was ready to wreak havoc with her. Steel Fairy typing is the best typing in the game, and her Mega Form boosts her attack and defense stats. And her Mega Form's ability gives her access to huge power, further boosting her already massive attack stat. She hits like a truck when she uses Play Rough or Iron Head, and she can learn Sucker Punch. In the past, I even ran her with Thunder Punch, and that worked out to be great too. And before Mega Evolving her, her ability is Intimidate, and I'm not opposed to just sending her into battle purely to lower my opponent's attack stat and then just switch her out again. Mega Mawile is one of the best Mega Pokemon in the game, and I'm glad that I toughed out my Pokemon Y journey with her. I think I've earned this Mega Form, and I'm more than glad to have this powerhouse by my side. Hawlucha is very fast and very powerful, and my Yalucha here can further boost her stats thanks to her abilities and moveset. She can run Limber to prevent being paralyzed, and she can play around her Unburden ability to boost her speed stat to extreme numbers. Otherwise, she does have Wolf Breaker, so she can truly be unstoppable. If she can manage to get a Swords Dance off, she'll tear through just about any defensive Pokemon in the game. Hawlucha was also one of the lucky few Pokemon to receive a new Mega Form in Pokemon Legends ZA. This does mean that she wouldn't be able to use her Unburden ability in this instance, and I'm fine with that. And the extra boosts that she'll get as a Mega Hawlucha are sure to aid me in my quest to victory. Mega Form or not, her fighting flying typing makes her quite the offensive threat. In my Pokemon Y adventure, I wound up catching two female Eevee, one in a Great Ball and one in a Pokeball, and in a way, they are like sisters to one another. At least, I like to think so. Of the two, Espeon here is the more offensive one, though she can be a bit more defensive and utility-oriented thanks to her Magic Bounce ability and her fast speed allowing her to pull off moves such as Trick, Substitute, or even Yawn. And if I really want to have some fun, she can learn Skill Swap. That could certainly lead to some fun shenanigans in the future. The more defensively oriented of my Evolution sisters, and ironically, the one that can possibly go on the offensive better too. Sylveon has access to Pixelate, meaning that any normal type move that she uses now becomes a fairy type move, thus widening the viability of her move pool. In a double battle, she can definitely use moves to allow her ally to strike harder, and if she's left on the field on her own if she's using a single battle, she can certainly handle things herself. I foresee a lot of interesting plays with Sylveon at my side. My other poison type outside of Drapion, and this one's specially oriented. Yagolgi, my Dragolgi, can use more classic moves such as Toxic Spikes and utilize the Black Sludge item. I also believe that he can work well with an Assault Vest and go on the offensive with a limited, yet usable move pool in Sludge Bomb, Thunderbolt, Dragon Pulse, and Hydro Pump. Now that Dragolgi has a new Mega Evolution thanks to Pokemon Legends EA, perhaps new options will be available at Dragolgi's disposal. So whether he'll be an extra bulky poison tank or an offensive dragon threat, Dragolgi here shall be ready to aid me in my endeavors in Pokemon Champions. I find Goodra to be an extremely useful and often underrated Pokemon. While other eyes may veer toward more prominent pseudo-legendary Pokemon, Goodra's defensive capabilities have proven to be very useful for me time and time again. The Assault Vest item was practically made for her, and if I so desired, I could run her with Sap Sipper to shut down opposing grass-type attacks, and if I really wanted to, I could play off of that and turn her into a physical threat. Otherwise, she serves as a great bulky Pokemon with plenty of utility. I could invest all of her stat values into defense and allow her to support the rest of my team by giving her moves like Chilling Water and Acid Spray, just to lower my opponent's stats. This way, when Goodra is on the field, my opponent shall be wishing they were fighting anything else. And if I could, I'd love to give my Goodra a big ol' hug for her efforts, if I wasn't so worried that I get stuck to all that goo. Reliable. I can always count on Yeevile, my Weavile. This little demon was a huge reason that I saw any success during my competitive trials back during Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and later Pokemon Sword and Shield. Weavile is the fastest user of Fake Outs in the game, which is especially useful as he can outspeed his main rival, Sneasler. He's a glass cannon, and I don't see that to be a problem. He hits so hard and hits so quickly that he may not even get hit. His speed is his greatest utility. He'll come in, strike hard, and then be on his way. Dragon, flying, and psychic types, beware. And of course, there's good old Gliscor. Defensively defining and mighty strong, Gliscor is great at staying on the field and just being a nuisance, barring any icicles. He can heal up via poison thanks to his poison heal ability, and outside of that, a fair deal of bulky Pokemon are steel type, so he can thrash them with ground type moves like Earthquake and High Horsepower, and he can also learn Knockoff to help aid the rest of the team. Alternatively, he can just run Swords Dance if he wants to go on the full offensive. Gliscor really can do it all, and I look forward to the Scorpion's assistance in Pokemon Champions. The first shiny Pokemon in my bunch, Frostlass was hatched as an egg during the post-game of my Pokemon Y adventure, even though her shiny form isn't too noticeably different from her original coloring. Though Frostlass has a new Mega Evolution, and a useful one at that, I actually prefer to utilize the base stats of regular Frostlass. Yes, if I wanted to, I could run Mega Frostlass so that I could set up a Snowstorm, and that's not a bad idea. It gives me an alternative option in case I don't wish to use my Vanillux. I've had the most luck using Frostlass as a sacrificial spirit. Her high speed and access to Destiny Bond means that if my opponent starts getting the upper hand on me, then she can even the playing field. As she goes down, she'll take her foe with her. She's otherwise great for speed control, with access to both Icy Wind and Thunder Wave. Whether she goes down or not, she's sure to defeat a number of opposing Pokemon and help me rise in the ranks. Another shiny Pokemon that I gained in the post-game of Pokemon Y, and another Pokemon that had to evolve via a trade evolution. My friend Emmatronics helped me get this one, and this computer-based Sippy Duck is a hard-hitting, special-attacking, normal-type Pokemon. I've historically run Porygon Z as a full-on offensive sweeper, often daring to run it with a Choice Scarf or Choice Specs, since it also has access to Trick in case I need to change Porygon's strategy. Porygon Z's main ability is Adaptability, which will boost its Tri-attacks, and I can also use Download if I find that to be a more useful ability instead. As a normal type, Porygon Z gains access to a large library of moves, and with so many powerful special attacks at its disposal, its surprise factor alone should make it a threat to my opponents. When Pokemon Sword and Shield first released, many Pokemon became inaccessible. As such, my selection of available Pokemon was effectively cut in half, and so for my Pokemon BATAW series, I had to reconsider a few things. One such thing regarded regional forms, as Galarian Darmanitan was the only accessible version of Darmanitan for a while, and it was the first time that one of my previously caught Pokemon had an alternate form. However, it wouldn't be the same Darmanitan that I used back in Pokemon Black and White. As such, I decided that it was okay for me to use regional forms of Pokemon that I had previously owned, as they are still the same Pokemon as far as the Pokédex is concerned. Though, since it's still not literally the same Pokemon, I need to identify this Pokemon with its own unique number and nickname. So, as a parallel to Michael, my Fire-type Darmanitan from Unova, this is Michael, my Ice-type Darmanitan from Galar, named after the Mario Kart player, Mike, with a 3 in his name. As for the usefulness of the Pokemon itself, Galarian Darmanitan is a menace. Its ability, Guerrilla Tactics, acts as a built-in Choice Band, so further stacking this with a Choice Scarf or even another Choice Band allows Darmanitan to just act as a nuke to my opponent. This therefore makes Galarian Darmanitan the hardest hitter on my team. Initially, I didn't intend to add any more Pokemon to my bubble during my competitive time in Pokemon Sword and Shield. I didn't record any walkthrough series or gameplay videos for the game beyond Pokemon BATAW, so therefore I didn't showcase myself catching or obtaining any new Pokemon. This changed after I won a shiny Alcremie at PAX East 2020 for taking on the PAX Pokemon League. For my victorious efforts, I was awarded a shiny Milcery with my choice of decorative suite, so I chose Flower. And now we have Devil's Food, my shiny Alcremie with flowers. Alcremie is a fantastic doubles partner thanks to our signature move, Decorate. It buffs an ally's stats, and it goes through Protect. Furthermore, Alcremie has access to a Gigantamax form, whose G-Max move heals her after each use, and her ability prevents both herself and her allies from being inflicted with sleep, thus shutting down Sleep Powder and Spore strategies from oncoming grass types. So, I'm certainly glad that I added Alcremie to my team so that I can give my opposing trainers their just desserts. Since I already used so many of Eevee's evolutions, or evolutions, and since Eevee had a signature Gigantamax form back in Pokemon Sword and Shield, I opted to incorporate an Eevee onto my team. I adore her shiny form, and a fair deal of the Pokemon before her were shiny, so having a shiny one will allow her to stand out more on my team. And she's nicknamed Lucky for similar reasons. Eevee's Gigantamax move inflicts attraction onto the opponent. I had battles that incorporated this idea while stacked with paralysis and accuracy lowering moves onto my foes, and the results were very amusing. I imagine that similar shenanigans will occur here in Pokémon Champions, and also, once Z-moves return, I can try running Eevee's signature Z-move as well for even more obnoxious showdowns. Originally nicknamed Lati, Stardom here is my shiny Latias that serves as the only legendary Pokemon that I use. I was fortunate enough to encounter her on my third attempt in Latias' den in the DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, I try not to use legendary Pokemon. Consider it a self-imposed challenge. On top of the self-imposed challenge of me only using Pokemon from this bubble, I tend to stray away from legendary Pokemon purely due to the spirit of this whole bubble idea. The Pokemon here are Pokemon that I caught over the course of my adventures, so using a legendary Pokemon just doesn't feel like something natural, if that makes sense. I know that my opponents will use them quite often, and that's their choice. I don't blame them, legendary Pokemon are absurdly powerful. So I figured that if I ever used a legendary Pokemon of my own, I should use my favorite, and that's Latias. Fortunately for me, Latias has access to Tailwind, a crucial move in double battles, and her bulk allows her to stay on the field and remain a nuisance. And of course, purely from the nature of her being a legendary Pokemon, her high stats will make her viable for me regardless. Now we move on to my team from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And as I was Team Fire in Splatoon 3 Splatfest because I chose Fuecoco as my starter Pokemon, I eventually evolved that little fire guy into a Skeledirge. Fry Guy, as I officially call him, is already great thanks to his Fire Ghost typing. Beyond that, he's deceptively bulky with access to Snarl and Will-O-Wisp to truly shut down my opponents. His signature Torch Song allows him to boost his special attack and deal damage with each use. And best of all, his ability is unaware, so regardless of how many stat boosts my opponents may have boosted, Fry Guy can still hit each of them like it's nothing. Thanks for being on the team, Skeledirge. Pom-Pom, my Palmot, is quite the cheerleader for my team. She's great because she can hit hard and serve as a great supporting role. She has access to Revival Blessing, which allows her to revive a fainted Pokemon on my team. Beyond that, she also has access to Nuzzle, allowing her to paralyze Pokemon like Goldango regardless of their abilities. And she's also got Knockoff to assist her teammates in other ways. She has plenty of heavy-hitting moves like Double Shock and Close Combat whenever she's ready to stop supporting and start fighting on her own. Let's give it up for Pom-Pom! Whoop whoop! The full nickname for my Tinkaton is Tink 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 Tink, in case anyone was curious, but for the sake of brevity and Pokemon's character limitations, I'll just simply call her Tink Tink Tink. Let me just say, Tink Tink Tink's design is peak. She's a gremlin with a hammer. I love it. On top of a great design, she also has great typing. Fairy Steel typing once again. And her signature move of Gigaton Hammer hits hard. Beyond that, she learns a plethora of great utility moves, Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave, Encore, Baby Doll Eyes, and more. Yeah, she's a gremlin alright. I trust that she'll be quite useful and devious on my teams. Palafin was a pleasant surprise to me when I first encountered her in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Little did I know what type of Pokemon Miss Dolphy would become. An absolute superhero beast. When she is switched out and switched back into a battle, Miss Dolphy will transform into her hero form and gain a huge boost in attack power. Combine that with her signature move of Jet Punch, a priority water type move, and Palafin may as well just be the next One Punch Man. Or One Punch Woman, I guess. One Punch Dolphin? Oh, I adore this dolphin, and I look forward to using her dolphin powers in future matches. She's my hero. Mr. Tatsu is a droopy form Tatsugiri. On his own, Tatsugiri has an admirable special attack stat, a respectable typing in Water Dragon, and a great ability in Storm Drain. Mr. Tatsu's greatest weakness is his move pool, as Tatsugiri is typically supposed to be paired with Dondozo, a Pokemon that I don't have. This means that I'm using Tatsugiri solo, and must use his attributes to my advantage. With all that in mind, Tatsugiri was one of the lucky Pokemon to receive a Mega Evolution in Pokemon Legends ZA, so hopefully that will further benefit Tatsugiri and allow him to become a top-tier threat. If nothing else, I've had modest success with Mr. Tatsu thanks to terastallizing him into a Fire-type Pokemon, which allows him to resist Fairy-type attacks and cause players to accidentally select Water-type attacks, which he absorbs with Storm Drain. Of course, that would require terastallization to return to the game, and at that point, I should just be able to play off of Tatsugiri's new Mega form. We'll see. Speaking of new Mega forms, Baxcalibur is another Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet that gained a Mega Evolution in Pokemon Legends EA. On its own, Baxcalibur wields a high attack stat and immunity to Fire-type moves thanks to its ability, which means Will-O-Wisp is ineffective on it. And Bax here is more than capable of setting up for a sweep. He learns plenty of powerful moves, and his signature Glaive Rush is sure to one-hit KO opposing Pokemon, especially other Dragon types. And he can make up for his lower speed thanks to the priority move, Ice Shard. Or, if need be, I can run him with Scale Shot to just boost his speed that way. I've also just always appreciated Dragon Ice typing, and Kyurem never really did it for me. Bax will get the job done. none, and we shall soon see what his new Mega Evolution will entail. Fluttermane was a Pokemon that I caught after my team had already been filled, hence its nickname of After Party. With that said, I just thought that Fluttermane looked cool when I first saw it, and I'd always been interested in using a Mischievous or a Mismagius, so I caught it when I saw it. Fluttermane is one of the most powerful Pokemon in the game. It has base 135 in special attack, special defense, and speed, and its ability can make it so that these stats are furthered in the sun. And it has Ghost Fairy typing, which is great both offensively and defensively. And it learns a wide variety of moves to shut down its threats. I've hardly had a chance to use it in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, so let's change that. In due time, my own Fluttermane shall have a chance to enter the battlefield and show what it can really do. Now we've got more regional forms of Pokemon that I already own. They go at the end of my Scarlet and Violet team as they were first accessible for competitive battles starting in that game, even though they first debuted in Pokemon Legends Arceus and are Hisuian forms. With that in mind, each of these regional form Pokemon are supposed to take after one of my other Pokemon on my team, so I figured that their nickname should probably follow suit. Since my original Arcanine is nicknamed Blaze, this Hisuian Arcanine shall be nicknamed Blast, and he is another rock type on my team, allowing me to finally have another one beyond my Gigalith. As a standalone Pokemon, Hisuian Arcanine isn't too different from my regular Arcanine. He can serve as a heavy hitter with his Rock Head ability, allowing him to not take recoil damage from Flare Blitz and Head Smash, and alternatively he can play a great support role, just like my regular Arcanine. Otherwise, getting same type attack bonus from Rock Slide is always useful. Since my previous Zoroark is nicknamed End Zoroark, as it was originally, well, End's Zoroark, then this Zoroark shall be named His Zoroark, as it's Hisuian Zoroark. This Zoroark is functionally similar to the other one. He takes on the appearance of whatever Pokemon is last in my party. This allows me to play mind games with my opponent before the match has even begun. The primary difference is typing. Whereas the original Zoroark is Dark type and is therefore immune to the likes of Psychic types and Prankster users, this Hisuian Zoroark is a normal Ghost type, meaning he's immune to oncoming normal or Ghost type attacks, as well as fighting attacks, and he can't be harmed by Fake Out. It's just a shame that I can't have both types of Zoroark on the same team due to them having the same Pokedex number and therefore counting as a duplicate Pokemon. Otherwise, outside of mind games, Hisuian Zoroark is a great special attacker with great typing, and that alone makes him a worthy addition to the team. Since the Pokemon on my Pokemon Y team have all had the naming scheme of having their nickname start with Y, I've opted to have my Hisuian Goodra have her nickname start with H, after Hisui. I suppose I could have had it start with L for Legends or A for Arceus, and I guess they could work. Ultimately, since it's Hisui, I opted for that instead, so as to hopefully future-proof myself unless another Goodra form exists one day and that form also starts with an H. In any case, Hisuian Goodra does much of the same as my original Goodra, just with better typing. Dragon Steel typing is obnoxious to deal with, and her base defense stat is even higher than that of regular Goodra. Her goal isn't necessarily to take down Pokemon on her own, her goal is more so to wear down my opponents. For the time being, all of her effort values will be put into her defenses, meaning she can either buff her own stats further with moves like Acid Armor or Shelter, or she can lower my opponent's stats with moves like Acid Spray, Chilling Water, and Mudshot. I'll use my Hisuian Goodra to shut down my opponents, and that way, even if she's the last Pokemon on my team remaining in a battle, she'll be the one that's last standing once the fight concludes. The offspring to my Meganium and the new Bayleaf to fill the role of my Eviolite user, Cinnamon, is here to carry on the Bayleaf legacy. She may technically be the newest and youngest Pokemon on my team, but my game plan with Bayleaf will be very familiar. Leech Seed, Light Screen, Synthesis, Grassy Terrain, and more, stacked with her Eviolite boosted defenses, allows her to wall better than Meganium. With my former Bayleaf now as a Meganium, and this new Bayleaf as my newest Pokemon, they shall hopefully one day get to form a fun mother-daughter duo. It'd be Mega Mom and Baby Bay. Cinnamon will carry on the legacy of her mother and will demonstrate why Bayleaf is my all-time favorite Pokemon. These are the 60 Pokemon that shall aid me on my quest to become a known name within Pokémon Champions and beyond. Now, the question is, will I ever add more Pokemon to my team, especially with Pokemon Winds and Waves releasing on the Nintendo Switch 2 in the future? At the moment, I do not intend to add any additional Pokemon. I believe that the fun of this challenge is to see how well my current lineup can adjust to new encounters and opponents. Plus, I kind of just appreciate how this turned out to be an even 60 Pokemon in the end. With all that in mind, I'll make an exception if there are new regional forms for Pokemon that are already in my collection. Just as I I did with Galarian Darmanitan and my Unovan Darmanitan, if a new regional form exists, I'll incorporate it onto my team with a fresh nickname and everything. Just note that these Pokemon would need to be exact regional forms of one of my existing Pokemon and not just a branching evolution. That's why I don't use Clodsire even though I use Quagsire, or why I don't use Sneasler even though I use Weavile. I also suppose that if one of my current Pokemon were to receive a new evolution in the same vein as Duraludon gaining an evolution to Arcaludon, then sure, I'll use that too. It wouldn't increase the size of my Pokemon bubble, it would just be one Pokemon getting stronger, much like how I evolved my Bayleaf into a Meganium. As it stands, these are the 60 Pokemon that I shall use. You can expect to see them on the battlefield in different team combinations, and hopefully someday you can expect to see them on a stage at a major event. Let's see if I have what it takes to become a Pokemon Master, and let's see if I have what it takes to become a known name within Pokémon Champions.